Lift your legs up, please, gents.
Cuando digamos acción, todos vendréis corriendo hacia acá.
The cool thing about these two episodes is that they are very much thematically linked in that they deal with rebirth. John comes back into the world naked, as if a baby at Castle Black in the cold. And Danny, naked, as if a child, but merging through fire and ice. And I did a lot of visual research. I looked a lot of Renaissance paintings dealing with the resurrection. And my favorite painter is Caravaggio. Myself and the DP sat down and we talked about how can we emulate that feeling. That's great. So let me just see this action here. Okay, Kit, ready? And action.
Kit talked to us about the need for him to really feel what it feels like to remember your own death and how existentially terrifying that is.
I think I referred to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's book on death and dying. And I said, why don't we take that in reverse? Because there's stages of disbelief and bargaining and acceptance. And I said, so let's start there. You wake up and some of the pieces are missing and you don't know where you are. And then it becomes a series of discoveries. Where am I? Oh, well, I think I know where I am, and why am I naked? Then he looks down to discover that he has all these wounds. And then all of a sudden the memories start flooding back and panic ensues. So it really becomes sort of, how does John deal with what's happened?
He's been dead, and that's an experience that no one can understand unless it's happened to you, which means no one can understand.
What did you see?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
We go through the entire scene. He walks over to the rope, starts to lift the sword. We focused on how John would deal with the execution of Ollie.
It all comes back to Ned Stark, you know, the man who passes the sentence, swings the sword. I mean, it's the Northern ethos. John really doesn't want to do this. I mean, he's the justice of it is clear. I mean, these men assassinated the Lord Commander. They need to be executed, but he's the one who passed the sentence, and he's got to swing the sword.
Yeah, we did really drop them. It's always kind of chilling because your initial reaction as an audience is visceral. You know, they're in these harnesses that drop, and it is a little bit of a shock to the system.
You have to loosen this off. Yeah. Loosen the actual dressing rope.
The first time feeling that drop and the noise of the barrels being pulled back is terrifying when you're standing above it. It feels so real, and that obviously adds to the ability to act terrified during the scene.
Zafra Tower, which is in Guadalajara, Spain, it feels magical.
It almost looks surreal. I want everybody to know that it's real and that visual effects didn't do anything to it.
I remember sitting there on set reading on the history of this building, the way it was built against the Moors, and then the Moors took it, and then it was used in Spaniards fighting Spaniards, and all this brutal and bloody Thronesy history that was taking place right on the spot we were standing. Fights like the fight we were watching were happening probably where we were shooting this very fight.
Certainly they've done a lot of sword fights in this series. The question was, how would I make it different? I stumbled upon a Sergio Leone movie called Once Upon a Time in the West. And it's all about creating tension through anticipation of what's to come. And I thought, that's the key to this. You would see this tower and horses on a plain, and then you would start to hear the sound of a stone on a blade of a broadsword. It would sort of sync in rhythms with the horse's hooves, and then you would see these powerful horse's hooves. And then you would cut to a gleaming knight's helmet. And little by little, tease the audience into a sense that a mythic event is about to happen.
And now it begins. Now it ends.
David and Dan wanted the flashiest swordsman in the whole of the Game of Thrones world.
As Sir Arthur Dane is a legendary member of the Kingsguard under the Mad King, and reputed by many to be the greatest sword fighter in the history of the Seven Kingdoms.
He has two swords. He's got his own traditional sword, and he's also got the Dawn, which is basically his pride and joy, which is this sort of white blade.
It was really tricky to choreograph and execute and film a very complicated sword fight and make all of the cuts and all of the parries and all the defenses and all of the kills look real and convincing while being flashed.
He stabbed him in the back.
The second part of it that made it a little trickier was that it is part of Bran's vision.
How does a boy having a dream, how does he interact in a landscape that he's not really meant to be there?
Father! Figuring out clever ways of transitioning the points of view and bringing Bran and the Three-Eyed Raven into the story and then taking them out so that each had its own specific linear narrative.
All of Danny's story, the vast majority of it was shot in the exterior world in Almeria, out in Spain. We had the gates of Dothrak were down there. The exterior of the village, as well as the exterior of the temple. And then we built the interior of it back here in the car park in Belfast.
They're going to bring me to face Dothrak, and there's an argument that happens as to what they will do with me. My fate is being decided.
What happens is you sit down with these previs artists and you kind of pitch your vision for the sequence. And you present them with storyboards. You say, okay, well, we're going to burn the temple down from this angle, and I sort of want it to look like this and this. And then what's determined is how you approach that from standpoint, because the building's on fire, right? You can only put people in a certain proximity to that. So you have to shoot those as separate elements. So you bring green screens in and green screens out. It ends up being so many different elements that you have to sort of keep your fingers crossed that what you end up with will be what you had envisioned in the prep process.
And I'm starting at this one.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sure.
One of the big things that Dan Sackheim was really concerned about when he came to shoot the interior was how is it that this quite small girl is able to set this whole building on fire while she has 21 men around her.
Ieri vosseci. Ieri vedrivoi.
So the notion I came up with was to topple these braziers to create an impenetrable line.
And then the matting would catch light, and then that would, travel up the walls, and then that would get to the roof.
Until she's sealed the temple and they can't get out. She's sort of trapping them all in this fiery tomb.
The interior burning was scary, genuinely frightening, where I was like, oh, I'm not fireproof, whoops. I forgot about that one.
When you light for fire, you need a lot of light to balance with the firelight. For the exterior, the way I approached it, I had the moonlight, ambient light, a little bit higher than I would usually.
What I wanted to do is have this building that had lots of combustible stuff on it, so when it burnt for real. I wanted to use this certain approach, which is like a liquid propane. Very explosive, very difficult, but incredibly aggressive, and looks beautiful when it's burning. And with the liquid propane coming through, makes it look like an inferno, a proper inferno.
We meticulously planned out every step of that process. We knew what we were starting with a bunch of green screen of the people watching it. We knew then we were going to go to the burning. We had plotted out where every single camera needed to go and which camera would be shooting, what action at what time.
It's kind of like a little bit of a carnival atmosphere where everyone, hundreds of extras and hundreds of crew members and the cast and the director and ambassador to Spain was there, and all of us just standing there watching the world's biggest bonfire.
They spent over 2 months building a temple that we burned to the ground in 2.5 minutes.
What's it like to watch something that we build burn? I think everybody finds that really satisfying. I don't think anybody at all is sentimental about it. We all enjoy that for what it is. That's part of the fun of the job.